Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 55 of the Hunger for the Hustle podcast, the show where we pull back the curtain on entrepreneurship and make you guys realize that it's not all as glamorous as it's made out to be or as it seems. I can see my guest Sam laughing because she knows that's true. Sam, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you on the show. I am going to give our guests a little bit of a background on you. Sam is a lady who knows a thing or two about the hunger for the hustle. I have learned this through reading up about what she sent me before the show. After stumbling into the lash and beauty industry in 2015, Sam started building her business in the industry as a side hustle alongside her well-paid and secure government job. She very quickly fell in love with the beauty industry and within a few years managed to quit her job and grow her business to what it is today, which is a multiple six-figure business. Just before we get started, Sam, well done on doing that. Love your hustle. Respect that. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks. And thanks for having me. I'm so excited to join you.
It's my absolute pleasure to be joined by a fellow hustler and entrepreneur. So tell us, Sam, you say that you kind of stumbled into it, almost accidentally ended up in the lash and beauty industry. How did that come to be?
Yeah, so I started doing lashes. I had just had my youngest daughter, who's now 6, and I split with my kid's dad. And so we had moved into this big house like about a year before we split. And so I had like a 1.5-year-old, I had this new baby, and I wanted to make sure I stayed in this house. I wanted that to be kind of the one solid for the kids. And so I was basically just looking for something to do on the side as a form of income so that I wasn't relying on his income, and I knew that I could afford everything on my own. And I was kind of toying with like serving, for example, was something I considered back then, but that would require me to leave the house and have a sitter or do it when they were gone or whatever. So when I say accidentally, it just was like something that happened to fit what I needed at the time because I could do it. I literally did it out of this room actually for the first 3 years. It's not my office here, but yeah. So I kind of just started it as a way to make money on the side, never thinking like I'm going to open a spa one day or I'm going to have a lash brand one day. Like that never crossed my mind when I first started. And then I just fell in love. Like during the day, at the time I was on mat leave, but my career job was literally telling people they owed the government money all day, like crunching numbers and being like, okay, now you owe the government $80,000. So going from that to you sit with a woman for 2 hours and you're kind of like her therapist and she's talking to you and you're friendly. And then she opens her eyes and she's like, oh my God, I love this so much. I feel so good. Thank you. Like it was like night and day from what I was used to. And so the part I fell in love with was like helping other people feel good about themselves.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I don't want to get stuck in it because you moved on from it, but pretty soul-destroying job there, just working for the government, telling people how much money they owe the government, right? But it was, I think it's important to talk about this. It was a pretty well-paid job, good benefits, it was pretty secure, but you just knew within you that like it just wasn't making you happy anymore, wasn't fulfilling you, and that this was your calling to do the whole beauty thing.
I think like everybody thought I was crazy for even considering something on the side because especially in our town, it's a small town. I got really lucky that I got that job right out of school. Like I graduated in April and I was starting there by October. So they paid for me to get my accounting designation. I mean, I was so lucky in that job. And so it did feel kind of wrong for a long time to even consider, like I was fighting the feeling inside myself that I wanted something more because everybody was telling me like, no, you have this amazing job. Like you can take summers off, you have a pension, you have benefits. But once I had a taste of the other side, things were never the same again is the best way to explain it. I just always had that feeling that I wasn't where I was meant to be anymore.
Yeah. And how many years had you done the other job before you moved into it?
So I started at the other job in 2010. So it was 5 years before I started lashing, but then I stayed there for another 4 years
Yeah.
I gradually went part-time as I was building the lash business.
Yeah. So you really took your time, didn't you? You really took your time to do it and made sure the time was right. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot of people who would be perhaps watching this who think, I'm just going to do it overnight. I'm just going to quit my job without any kind of real nest egg financially and without any real decent plan. And I think, yes, that can work for some people, but I wouldn't recommend it. What do you think about that?
You know what? I have a bit of a different perspective now that it's been a year, because so much has happened that I didn't anticipate in a year. So, I mean, at the time I made the decision, I thought I was really well prepared. But then my daughter got sick a few months later. So I was an hour and a half away for a month in a hospital there with her. And then COVID happened. So all of that is to say, I don't know if there ever is a right time. You can think you're so prepared. And then in retrospect, I'm like, well, maybe if I would have done it 6 months earlier, things would have been a bit more settled when I had to step away, or I would have done an online course and had that ready for COVID or whatever. I mean, there's so many what ifs, but I do think you have to be careful about it. You don't want to add the stress of not being able to provide financially while you're trying to build this business. So I was very careful in that I gradually kind of reduced my hours there as things picked up in the business so that I could still function and still maintain living in this house and kind of the lifestyle I was living.
Yeah, I think it's important. You said from the start there that your goal was to be able to provide for and stay in the house that you lived in and be able to afford doing that by yourself. I think it's always good to keep that goal at mind and then relate your intention to that. So no wonder, you were 9 years in the job there. No wonder a part of you felt like a little bit wrong, like a little bit almost naughty or guilty, that it was like, should I really do this? Is it okay? It's not what most people do, particularly coming from a small town where, look, I can't speak for that small town, but I'm just talking about small towns I've experienced in. A lot of people come out of school, get a job, and that's it. They do that for the rest of their life. And there's nothing really outside of that. That's how it goes.
Yeah, it's very rare, especially in a small town. There's no other lash companies. The closest one would be Toronto area.
Right.
People just don't. If they're going to make a move, they move to a big city first and then make a move. It's even more risky. I could have kind of built this business 100,000 times easier in a big city, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted to raise my family here, so that kind of adds a new element to it when you know that there's a market way bigger in a different area, but I was trying to do it and stay here at the same time.
However, I guess that works in a good way, because you're the only people don't have to travel to the big city to get their lashes done right and get their beauty needs taken care of. So you've got the market in that area.
Yeah, for products, now that the lash industry is still fairly new, but as it's picking up and there's more techs, we're the only place in town, or even within, we have people driving an hour to pick up products for them to do lashes. So because they don't have to go on a website and order it, and they can get in their car and come ask me questions because I'm still so hands-on, that has definitely worked to our advantage to have that kind of small town feel, because we'll have people say oh my gosh, I order from this company, to try and get through to even ask them a question about their product is a nightmare. And I can walk in and ask to talk to the owner, and you're like, yeah, let's sit down and look at this glue or whatever it is that they have problems with. So that's definitely worked in our favor. That's
a super good point, and it's a super really good way of adding an extra income stream to your business, isn't it? And actually supporting people, because I know, clearly I don't get my lashes done, but I know a little bit about the industry from friends that do it. That there's a lot of people who do it for friends, or who do it starting like you do, as in the earlier days, as a side hustle. And of course, they need to get their product from somewhere. So if you can be that offering to them, but also doubling up on that, you can give them the advice, because that's what a lot of people need. And of course, it's okay ordering stuff online, but like you say, there's not always a lot of customer service on the back end that comes with that. So and I'm going to come on to some challenges here. I know it's a pretty rapid switch, but a lot of businesses are being challenged at the minute by COVID. I imagine your business has as well. And did things like that, the product side of things, are they helping you kind of carry through it?
Yeah, so it was very interesting for us, because So part of my business is the product side of things. Part of it is a salon. Part of it's training. And so the training historically before COVID was all in person. So the training side of things and the spa, we were completely shut down March 16th until we didn't go back to doing lashes till the middle of July. So that that income just literally stopped. But having the products, so for example, we have a lash product that is to help eyelashes grow. So any of our lash clients that weren't getting their lashes done anymore, most of them bought our serum. So even though it's not them coming every 2 or 3 weeks, little stuff like that definitely helped carry us through. And then it really forced me to pivot. So because everything was online before, or sorry, everything was in person before, by May, I had filmed an online course. I launched a podcast in July. So being at home gave me the time to do that, but I also didn't have a choice because I'm sure everybody can relate that was in a similar position. You're just sitting there being like, what the hell can I do to like keep this ship going in the right direction? It was like, you just had to do whatever works. And for me, I'd considered doing a lot of that, but I just had never found the time. So it forced me to do that. And then it's also led me kind of in a different direction now. I'm still doing the other stuff, but I'm doing a lot more kind of online coaching that started through the course that I offered, and even like hands-on. Someone just booked with me today. I'm going to drive an hour, sit with her in her spot, help her with a client, help her troubleshoot some lash issues she's having. So I'm starting to do a little bit more of that too, which is again, the side of it where you're helping people feel good. And in this case, helping other people grow their business. I'm just in love with doing that side of it.
Yeah. And do you think was that, the podcast, the coaching, was these things that you wanted to do anyway pre-COVID, and it's just giving you the opportunity, the time and space to do them?
For sure. It was all stuff I had talked about before, but never kind of sat down. Like, for example, the online course at the beginning, as soon as COVID hit, I signed up with an academy to do a course on creating an online course. It came with a portal that I could plug all my videos into. So that was like a weekend retreat that I did virtually. And then bam, I could start doing that. The podcast, I took a course on how to start a podcast and then just hit the ground running. But I just hadn't made the time to even look into, I would have had no idea how to start a podcast 6 months ago. Like no idea. And now I'm recording them and I have an assistant editing them. Like it's kind of crazy, the snowball effect once you start something.
It is, isn't it? Like the power of the decision, like make the decision, have the idea, and then just run with it. And before you know it, it's grown into something that is giving a lot of value to other people, as well as helping and grow your business. Because I know obviously you've kind of adjusted your focus now to helping other businesses and keeping their standards up and inspiring them to get to do what you did, right? To generate their own cash, their own income, so they don't have to rely on trading their time for someone else's money, and just like waking up every Monday morning not looking forward to going to work. And that feeling, oh God, I remember it.
Right? I feel like once you're out of it, it's just, I think back like every morning, I was like, oh, do I really have to do this today?
And the thing is, you don't have to do it. But if you haven't got a better idea of what you do want to do, the only way of finding out, I think, is trying new things.
Right.
Like, and trying a lot of new things, particularly if you're young, like, in your 20s. I think that's the time, even into your 30s. If you haven't got a lot of responsibilities, then just try new things. You never know what's going to stick. For you, it was lashes. For me, it's been speaking and podcasts. For you now, it's now evolved into coaching. I'm looking at writing books and stuff like that as well. You just don't know until you try. But if you don't try, you'll never know. They're kind of like, it's a bit of a chicken and the egg thing, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think exactly what you're saying is key about trying different things, because I know what I see in our industry is there's people that get in it strictly for the money, because there is good money in lashes if you do it the right way. They don't get into it because they love it. They get into it because they want to make money, and they never last. Like, you're not going to last if you're trying to jump into something that your heart's not really in it, because people, A, can feel that, and B, you're just not going to have the passion to put into your business to grow it like it should be.
Yeah, totally agree that people will feel it sooner rather than later, I think, as well. And I think if money is your main motivation, then you know as well as I do, Sam, it's not always like that. The bills aren't always paid. It's a bit of a roller coaster. And if money is your main motivation, when the times when the money's not flowing in so greatly,
Yeah.
you're going to kind of question why you're doing it. You know, you're going to become despondent in what you're doing, and then ultimately, you know, where's that going to go for you? I don't think it's
I think from my finance background too, like from being an auditor, I know that even from a government perspective, they don't expect new businesses to make money for at least 3 years. Like when I first started my business, any extra money I had was going in to sampling more products and getting higher inventory and all of that stuff. So people think like they're going to jump right in and like, oh my God, I'm going to be so rich. It doesn't work like that. Like if you really want to grow your business, you have to invest back into it. And like I said, like even from a government perspective, they typically wouldn't audit anyone right out the gate because they know you're not going to be making money anyways.
That's handy information to know, I think. And I guess, what would you say, like having the qualification in accountancy, you know, as like an add-on? Was that a big help in running your own business? Because I know that's where a lot of businesses can fall down. They're making the money, but they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah, I think even just the startup of the business, because like I have a bachelor's degree in business. So like I, for example, did my own incorporation. I like did all my own registrations and stuff. So a lot of what people would have to hire a lawyer to go do, I knew that I could do it on my own. So I was able to navigate the system kind of a lot easier to get things going quicker, but also a lot cheaper than a lot of people end up doing for a startup. And I think just having more of a grasp on numbers and how things work. I don't do my own books. My mom's actually an accountant. She does them too, but I still do our payroll. So it's allowed me to not have to hire out a lot of stuff that people A, typically have to hire out, or B, try and do on their own and really screw up. And that's what I've seen from an audit perspective is like they're handing you a shoebox. They don't even know what's in it or what they claimed or like anything like that. So that part of it I really enjoy helping people with right now too. When I'm doing my coaching, a lot of what we're talking about is like taxes and insurance and pricing and like the business side of things versus physically doing lashes.
There's a whole lot to it, isn't there? And I think particularly in industries, I see it a lot, and it could play out a little bit in the beauty industry, but particularly like creative industries, you know, the arts, like performing arts, writers, artists, you know, whether that be written, like performing, drama, or work, like the creative side is there, but then to monetize that and to deal with the businessy end, you know, it could play out the same in beauty as well. Okay, you know, I've done the training, I've got a love for beauty, I know how I'm a like people's person, because I guess you really have to be a people's person in beauty, or at least it's going to help you. That end of stuff's all sorted out, but it's kind of like the business side of it can become a bit of a monster, particularly if you're not aware, like experienced in that regard, and become a bit overwhelming. So I think it's great that you offer people the whole scope of it and not just a little bit of it.
Yeah, I think what ends up happening is people just don't deal with it. And then it can become this overwhelming stress by the time they do deal with it, because they're forced to, because they're getting audited, or they need to apply for a loan and they haven't done their taxes in 4 years or whatever it is. I think it's really important. Even on my podcast, like we had an accountant on just to give little tips about how to easily keep your books and stuff like that. Stuff that people don't think about when they start their business. They just think, oh, I'm good at this. Like, let's do this. But there is so much more behind it. For our industry, social media is so big. And that's what I find a lot of people are missing, is like, they might be doing amazing lash work, but like you look at their social media, they have no branding, they have no brand colors, they're like post once every 3 weeks. So that's like a really big focus that I help people with. And it's something that even I need help with. Like I have someone doing a lot of our graphics, other people that go on Instagram and engage and stuff like that. But social media is so big. And it's like not even something I was taught in school, because it wasn't big then. So I've taken a lot of courses I think that's the key, is just really constantly educating yourself. Like I still
Yeah.
am constantly, I just took a copywriting course on the weekend. Like I'm constantly just doing new stuff to try and get more knowledge.
Yeah, it's important, right? Particularly as you know, social media, you mentioned, the platforms are always kind of changing, evolving, growing, new things are being added. And to keep up to speed with them, you have to, you know, get this education, do these courses, or just employ someone else that knows what they're doing, or hire them, right? Because yeah, I know that plays out particularly in the sports industry, in the beauty industry. Social media just has such an impact, and particularly with beauty, like, because you see such a in the physical, like, transformation before and after with things like lashes and eyebrows and PMU. It's a really good way of displaying that, particularly on platforms like Instagram, where it would just be really impactful because there's a really clear before and after. And I think a lot of people just think, okay, I have to like put my prices on there and and the services I offer. But I think what a lot of people neglect is like the value of documenting what you do and the journey of what you do, and like, instead of just going before and after, maybe creating a longer tail video of, you know, hey, this is today's client, this is what we're going to do, this is what product we're using, and all that kind of backstory, and then the end result. Like, people find a lot more value and authenticity in documenting than just showing the end results.
For sure. And I think with Instagram, for example, like the algorithm, all it cares about is people looking at your stuff longer, them staying on the app longer. So if they're just looking at a quick picture of lashes, they're probably not going to do much. They're not going to sit there and read the post. But if you're doing an educational post on maybe why you did that shape of lashes for that person's face or whatever it might look like, and they actually have to read and they're learning something at the same time, well, then they're staying on there longer. So that's going to be favored on the algorithm. It's going to show it to more people. Like I said, people can have like the most beautiful lash work, but if they're not kind of working it properly and posting other stuff that's captivating for their audience, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's easy just to get lost and not find much value in it, and just, it's another page that you just scroll through, particularly when there's just so much content on there at so much scale. You really have to try and be the difference in that space.
Yeah.
Now, I know you have a spa as well. Tell us a bit more about the spa, because I'll tell you what, the spas have been closed for a while. I tried to book into one the other week and it was fully booked. I mean, I'm not going to fly all the way over there, frankly. I can't. I'm in need of a spa, so I'd like to just hear about one and remember what they look like.
Yeah. So our spa kind of started as just lashes. By the time we opened the spa, there was 2 people, like 2 of us doing lashes out of this room. And then we also had an injector that came here for guest days to do like lip fillers and stuff. And so basically I opened that because it outgrew my house. That's kind of where that move came from. And then we've been open, June was 2 years. And so we've gradually kind of added other services. We have lots of different facial options. We have manicures, pedicures, spray tans, teeth whitening, relaxation massage, lashes, obviously. So kind of like the whole 9 yards. The idea is that people come in for one service and then they're like, oh wow, like I can come here and make a day of this and get a bunch of different stuff done at once.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's what you want, really, isn't it? Like one place where everyone can get everything, and then it keeps them coming back as well, of course.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about some challenges you've had within business, because I always like to talk about them, perhaps even some failures as well, because just it highlights the more difficult parts of people's stories in business, and I think that the lessons learned in them times are really valuable.
Yeah, so I think a few come to mind in the past year specifically. Kind of when I quit my corporate job, the idea was that I was going to quit and like dive into this and be at work like 24/7, to kind of really, really grow everything. And then it just hasn't kind of turned out that way. So yeah, Halloween last year, I quit my job. And then the beginning of January, my daughter got sick. So we were at a sick kids hospital, and so the good thing is I had the business like running enough that it functioned while I was gone. I wouldn't say there was pretty much no growth because I was just trying to go through the motions, like doing payroll on my phone or like hooked into the hospital Wi-Fi on my laptop or whatever. But that was definitely a challenge because I was kind of relying. Now I have one specific person that kind of acts as like an office manager, that if that ever happened again, I know she's there 5 days a week. At the time, we didn't really have set hours. So it was challenging to figure out like who was doing orders and when they were going to get out. And if there was a customer complaint, like, am I dealing with it from email or getting someone else? I didn't have the proper controls in place. And that really highlighted it when I couldn't be there. So that time was definitely challenging. We functioned, we got through it. I was still paying the bills, but it really opened my eyes that I need to get some more controls in place for if I couldn't be there. And so I did that, and I shouldn't say I did it. I started that because COVID then happened. So then you think, okay, like I've created this business. Wow, it functioned while I was gone for a month. Like, amazing. Well, I never, ever in my life thought I needed to create a business that functioned if we couldn't physically be open. Like, that never crossed my mind. So then when that happened, I was like, shit, like we didn't think of this. And so
I don't think it crossed anyone's mind.
Yeah, that was definitely another challenge, like we talked about, to pivot. And it's also something I really try when I'm coaching now, because another lockdown is potential for us. I'm like, okay, so what are we going to sell for retail? What are you going to have to offer your clients? If you can no longer do lashes, let's start talking about, I said we sold the serum. We also sold at-home teeth whitening kits, was another thing that sold fairly well for us. But like the tiny lash artist in her like living room wouldn't probably be thinking ahead like that. So I'm trying to help people at the moment think ahead to, okay, if I have zero income, what else can I start offering? What does my ideal client, what are they going to want when they're sitting at home that I can give them? So that was definitely another challenge. Another one that's coming to mind is staff. So it's really easy when you're your own boss, but when you have to boss other people around, that's something I wasn't really prepared for. And I'm better at just kind of doing what I have to do now, but I was kind of a pushover for a long time, and it bit me in the ass big time because I was just too lenient and too flexible, and at my own expense, at the expense of the business. So that's another challenge that I've kind of had to grow into the role of what it means to be a boss, and like the hard things that come with that. Especially, it's a group of women. Actually, every single woman I work with is older than me. So it's just, that's definitely been a challenge as well.
Yeah, I can imagine, right? And particularly if you're, I've only just met you, but you seem like a nice, kind person. It can be quite hard. And I know this from a personal perspective as well, because I'm quite a nice, kind person, to make that switch from being like, yep, this is me, authentic. I'm Sam, I'm Jake, I'm a nice, friendly person, to being like, okay, look, I've got to like be bit of a bitch about this now, but real at the same time. Like, this hasn't been done right. This is how it needs to be. Yada yada yada. It can be hard to put that hat on sometimes, can't it? And it can be easy to become a little bit of a pushover.
Yeah, and that's definitely and especially building the business and having another job where I wasn't there all the time. So like I had staff working for me when I was sitting at a desk job and couldn't answer my phone every 5 seconds, and really relied on them. And then I think once I jumped all in and kind of was around more and kind of saw what was going on more and had to make some changes, that it caused problems. There's no
the easiest way to put it, right?
Like, also having to separate, like I've had to fire several people now, and it's just like, okay, like I love them as a person, or like, one girl, I knew her family. I had gone to school with her brother, and like knew they lived down the road from my church. Like, anyways, it was just like, she was such a great person, but she she just wasn't a good employee. And so I really, really struggled with that at the beginning. And now I've just like learned to, I just have to step out of my own self and be boss Sam when I'm doing that and just kind of separate them.
Yeah.
My business is my livelihood for my kids. You know, I look at it that way. Like I'm doing this because I need to provide for my family. And I need to do what works. And that's just what it boils down to.
Yeah, and I can imagine that's like in a small town, that's something that you're with only so many people to employ in a bit of a niche industry. It's something that you're going to meet the challenge against. But yeah, it's like anything, right? You have to go through it so you can grow through it, and you come out. You know, it's like the COVID stuff. You know, you had to deal with being away from the business because your daughter was unwell, and I hope she's better now. By the way, I just want to say that. And you know, then there's all these challenges, all these things but you don't quit. You keep on working, you keep on figuring it out and readjusting, and yourself as you grow as a person, and then your business grows too because you learn to adapt through it.
Totally. And every new challenge, like COVID's a perfect example. In a lot of ways, it was a blessing in disguise. And I hate saying that because I know it's been awful for so many people and people have gotten sick and passed away and stuff. But for my business, in a way, because it forced me to pivot, it forced me to get online, it forced me to pursue kind of this coaching thing and start the podcast. And in a way, like I said, it was a blessing, and I've learned so much, even just to be better prepared if we close down again. It definitely has taught me a lot and opened my eyes to a lot of different things.
Yeah, I totally feel what you're saying there. It's a kind of bit of a treading on eggshells thing, the way we have to word it. But yes, of course, look, got to take that time and due respect to a lot of people. This has been a really terrible year, you know, like all due like love and blessings out there to anyone that's lost someone or who's been majorly ill from it. On the flip side to that, there is a flip side to everything. You know, it's been a great year to go within, to study things maybe that you wanted to study for years but just didn't have the time. Maybe to start a new side hustle, or maybe just to spend some time working on yourself and develop yourself and figure some things out for yourself. I know, speaking from a personal perspective, it's been a big year for me in that. Just having that time to be quiet and not have so many distractions from the outside in.
I think so many of us were just going through the motions, and COVID has really forced everybody to feel more than we were feeling before. Like for me, I'm someone that hides my feelings with busyness. If I'm stressed out, I just get busier, like, so I don't have to think about it. And so COVID really forced me to sit down and be like, what is working in my business? What is working in my life? Like, who are the people that are going to be around and supporting me? I think, for me, COVID either brought the worst or the best out in people in lots of different avenues of my life, at work and in my personal kind of friendships and stuff. It was kind of like a make or break. And yeah, it definitely a lot of reflection on just different aspects of my life that I wouldn't have had if I wasn't sitting at home for however many months that was. I think my kids were at home with me for like literally 6 months before they went back to school. Like even once things opened up, I was only working a little bit because I had them home with me. So definitely a lot of time to think.
Yeah, no, I can resonate with that. I'm someone who when they get a little bit stressed out, just kind of mask it with work and work. But eventually you burn out in that, don't you? Because you're not actually feeding your own needs. You're just you're building the business needs. Well, I certainly do anyway, I can tell you. And there's been a couple of times this year I've come pretty close to burnout, and interesting.
I used to get burnt out a lot, like when I was working both jobs. Like it was like a cyclical thing. I'd get myself back on my feet and then it would happen again. And so I've gotten a lot better at like reading those signs before they happen. But I definitely, actually, like 2 days ago, I hit a wall. I said to my mom a week ago, I'm like, it's coming. I have so much going on right now that I can't switch. I can't back away from. I'm like, it's going to happen. Sunday, I woke up and I was like, I felt like I got hit by a truck. I'm like, here it is. Like, so burnout is so real, and it's something that we don't talk about enough. because people are afraid to admit that they, like, for me, I just took on too much. That's what it was. They took on too much and it just got to me. But people don't want to talk about that. I'm really, really good normally at taking time to myself. I typically only book myself clients like a few days a week, and then I get to work from home at my own pace the rest of the time is typically how I operate. But lately I've had some issues at work. I'm there more, I'm doing clients more, and it just took away from that kind of peace time that I had at home, and it just all kind of came boiling over. And so that's a very real thing for everybody, I think.
Well, yeah, look, thanks for being just so honest and transparent about that, because I think, like you say, not a lot of people do talk about burnout. I think it's very important, and it can happen for a number of reasons. But usually, I think from the time I've had it, it's just when like the balance of work and life and which one you're giving too much attention to is just way off, and you have to come away, reset, readdress, and get it right. And like you said, you know, it's funny because the more it happens, you don't want it to happen, but then the more it happens, if you're being like listening to your intuition with it as it happens and you learn lessons from it, then the next time it happens, you can see it coming in a bit better. And like you said, you know, you knew it was coming this time. You said to your mom, look, it's coming again. You know, I know it's going to happen. So maybe I should, if you can, sometimes you can't, right, pull back from a few things. It's kind of hard when you have stuff scheduled ahead for 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
Yeah, and that's what happens, especially in my industry. So like last week I felt it coming. Friday night, I literally looked at my schedule and cleared myself 3 days a week till the end of the year. I was like, I need to get my shit together here. I need to calm down. And then Saturday, I was training a course all day. Saturday night, my kid was up all night, and I was like, here it is. Like, so even though I kind of took those steps to slow down when I could, it was too late. It was like, I literally didn't get out of bed till like 12:30 on Sunday because I was like, it was crazy. And you know what though? I took a day. I didn't really force myself to do anything. I let myself have that time. I woke up and did a bit like in the afternoon that was productive, went to bed early, and just even giving myself that day and not feeling bad about it. Like now I can already feel myself coming around. Whereas before when I would get burnt out, it was like weeks. Like I would be down and out. It's like being hungover is the best way to explain it. Like that's how I feel when I get to that point. But I think it is really important to take the time for yourself, especially when you're growing a business and you're so focused on what the next thing is. It's so important to take that time for yourself, or you're not going to get there as fast as you want to. Like you're going to be way more productive if you're taking care of yourself at the same time.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more, Sam. And I think it's a good time to ask, you know, of course, the Hunger for the Hustle is the title of this podcast. Hustle to me means not seeing the circumstances that you want around you, so just going out there and creating your own. I'd love to know like how you define hustle and how throughout, you know, this roller coaster of a journey you've had from employee to entrepreneur, what's really driven your hunger for the hustle throughout?
It's a good question. I looked at the question about asking about the definition, and I couldn't come up with a definition per se. What kept kind of playing in my mind was just different words that I associate with it. So like determination is one that kind of came up, and never giving up. I think as business owners, no matter what you're in, you're going to run into roadblocks. You're going to think that you have everything so planned out, and then something's going to come and like drive over your face that you weren't expecting. And so I think it's really just about being able to pivot and just being like, okay, we just have to find a new way to do this. Like, okay, this is going to slow us down, but we're still going to move full steam ahead. We just have to find another way, or work a bit harder, or whatever that is. I think for me, part of my personality is I'm just never happy with the status quo. Like even once I reach a goal, I'm like, okay, what's the next one? I'm going to like be happy about it. But like, I'm always thinking about the next thing. It's just my personality. And I think that is kind of my hunger for hustle, that I'm just always like, what can I do next?
I think that's a great answer. You said you didn't have the definition, but really then you then defined it yourself in the way that you operate and who you are, right? It's just a constant persistence and determination and mental resilience to not quit and to never give up. And then I'm the same as that, just set a goal. Okay, it's great. I do a lot of visualizing things as well before they happen. So then when they do happen, I'm like, yes, that's fantastic. It's amazing. But it's not like mind blowing for me because I already knew it was going to happen. I didn't visualize it. I visualized it so many times. And I've been working towards it for sometimes a long time. Sometimes it's really quick. But then it's like, what's next? What's happening next? It just keeps. That is the hunger for the hustle, Sam. Exactly. You got it. Now I think, and this is a good question to ask. What if you had to start? I reckon I know what you're going to say, and we'll go through it afterwards. But if you had to start again tomorrow with your business, let's just say, for some reason you wind back to them years and you started all again. Is there anything that you would do specifically differently?
Yeah, and I don't think you would guess what I'm going to say because I actually had this one thought out. It's a very easy answer for me. I would not start a product brand and a spa at the same time.
Okay, no, that's not what I was going to say.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way he would know that. I would still do both, but I would have done one separately from the other because I did them both at the same time. I think they both have grown slower than they could. Like, obviously, we've had lots of growth. We're doing well, but in retrospect, I wish I would have just done one or the other and then kind of got whatever side of that part of that business stable and then jumped onto the other thing because I just was having to juggle so much while working at the same time. I would have just focused on one thing in retrospect.
Yeah, not spreading like the focus too thin because I've done that before. Like it's great as an entrepreneur to obviously feed that hunger for the hustle and just keep busy and keep things going, but not at the peril of what you're already working on and what you've already built. Spread the focus too thin. Nothing quite gets all the energy it needs. Of course, it does get there because you're determined for it to, but it actually becomes a lot more stressful. I find doing it that way, like doing all the things at once. I've got a mad analogy, and stick with me on this. So it's like you've had a few drinks. It's Friday night. You get pretty hungry. You go to the fridge. You decide you want to make a sandwich, but there's only enough butter left for really one piece of bread. So do you make one really okay half good sandwich, or do you just make a whole one whole sandwich that's half good, or just make a half sandwich that's really good? And that's what it's like when you've got too many projects going on. You're just trying to spread yourself too thin. Nothing quite gets the full focus, and it can just lead to just a bit more stressful life. That's the last thing you need, more stress when you're a business owner and operator.
Well, and if you are going to do something, you might as well do it right. So for me, what ended up happening is I really focused on the brand and the spa side of things. Even though they were running, I wasn't so involved in that. And so there was things I was missing seeing because I also was working another job. And even once I quit that job, but B, my staff also didn't feel like I was as invested in that side of things. And in retrospect, and I feel bad about that now. In my head, they were just doing okay and operating, things were just functioning. That was my goal at that point while I got the brand up and running. But I kind of focused on the brand and let that side grow because, to be honest, there's more money in that side of it and the product side of it. And then once I was kind of in a good place, then I've gone back to the spa and now I'm focusing on growing that and hiring more staff and stuff. But I've had to pick one or the other, which sucks. So it just is what it is. But I would have done probably the brand first and kept doing lashes out of my house and then done the spa. I had to do it all over again.
It's good to look back in retrospective, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, the other side of it is, right, look at all the things you've learned through doing it that way.
Sure.
And perhaps the amount of things you wouldn't have learned and will equip you for maybe other avenues of business you go into going forward, which I suspect the amount that you've done so far, you might have some other ideas in the workings anyway.
I do.
What are your goals, dreams, and aspirations for the future of your businesses?
I think for me, my biggest thing is to take things just to another level. So right now we're kind of operating out of one location. I would love to have kind of like a US location, like different locations all over, and then different training locations all over as well, rather than just the one that we're doing. So that's kind of the end goal, is to take it to be this global brand. And for the spa side of things, it would just be to grow that as well. But my goal on that side of things is to be able to step back from it. So I am the owner. I am choosing what products are used and involved in kind of the hiring. And then I have a spa manager that deals with kind of all of the day-to-day and payroll and all of that stuff. Like, I don't want to be doing payroll 5 years from now for the spa. So yeah, my goal is to still grow the spa, but be able to step back from it and then build a brand, and have more people involved in that side of things, like the product development side of it, for example, and have a marketing team and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, become more of an owner and less of an operator.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I hate doing is my bookkeeping. It's just my accountant, if he's watching, he might be watching this later. Sometimes he watches them. He's just constantly on at me, like, have you done it yet? Have you done it yet? Have you done it yet? And it gets so far behind. I haven't got a shoebox though. Like, I haven't got to that point. I've got like the shoebox, so I'm not getting too bad. But yeah, it's the biggest pain in the ass for me.
It's really funny because as an accountant, or as an auditor, I was really good at telling other people what to do, and I'm really good at coaching people what to do, but I'm not always good at following my own advice. So like I said, my mom does my books and she's like, hey, there's 7 receipts that I'm still waiting for. Like, where are they? So I'm really thankful actually that I have her to do it. I hired somebody for a bit that just didn't work out, and then my mom offered to do it, so that's kind of working out great. But it is really easy to let it get away from you.
It is, and it's something. But if you keep on top of it, it becomes a lot less of a beast.
Yeah, and you can also automate so much of it now. Like, we have QuickBooks, and it literally brings in, it's attached to my bank accounts, to my credit cards, to our POS system. So it's really just like the physical copies of invoices, and doing kind of like the payroll that you have to keep on top of when it's all automated. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but it can be when you're have a bunch of different expenses and you got people running to go grab this and that and all that stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. I use Xero, but yeah, it works in exactly the same way. It's just all links up, so it's good, nice and easy. Now tell me, like, let's go into a bit about the coaching business. Are you looking to take on new clients to coach at the moment?
Yeah, I have some openings right now, and I'm mainly coaching people kind of in the lash and beauty industry, but of course open to kind of any business coaching if I was the right fit for somebody, if they kind of heard me and resonated with my story. Yeah, that side of it, like I said, I really have fallen in love with, I love when people learn from my mistakes. And I know that probably sounds really weird, but I love being able to say to them, like, I really messed this up. Like, here's my story. Like, don't do it this way.
Yeah, do not do it.
Yeah, I love that side of it. I know that sounds weird, but even with lashes, I'm like, check out this girl. She had a crazy reaction because I did something I shouldn't have. Like, please don't ever do this, or your clients are going to look like this. Like, I just love being able to share that side of it. And then, I mean, the other part for me is a lot of the people that I coach are kind of in the position I was in, where they're just doing it, their feet, like they just have their feet wet and they know that they want to go big with it. They're just not sure how to get there or what the next step is. And so I love people, like, helping people figure out what direction they're going to take.
Yeah, I like that. And so if people kind of want to get in touch with the coaching, I'm going to drop your links in the comments anyway. But in regards to the coaching, what's the best way to kind of contact you about that?
Either my website or my Instagram. So my Instagram is I am Sam Clancy, and then my website is just samclancy.com for the coaching.
Easy. I like the way you got the domain of your own name. That's not always an easy thing to do.
Yeah, and I offer like free mini sessions, so like a 15-minute call just to like talk about yourself and your business and see if we're a good fit before you have to like commit to anything. It's really, really good just to like meet people. You get sometimes you get a good vibe real quick. Other times it's like no problem. You just don't vibe with people. And like, I think it's so important. I have a business coach in the UK actually. And like from the second I started talking to her, I was like, this is my girl. And I've had talks with other people and it's like, just not for me. Nothing wrong with that person, but you really have to like connect if you're going to be working together.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's an important point to raise. You know, take your time. You know, perhaps you're not going to gel with the first person. Doesn't mean it's not going to work out. Just give it a bit more time. Try and find someone else. There's multiple reasons why it might not work out for both of you. You know, from a coach perspective to someone who wants to be coached. It's probably a bit better word for what that would be. A mentoree, maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm sure you get what I'm trying to say, guys. That take it, take a bit of time. Yeah. A student, maybe that would be better.
Yeah.
And then, right as we come to the end of the show, Sam, and thanks so much for giving me your time and energy today. I've had a really good chat with you, and I've learned a lot actually myself in the things you've said. Before we close out, can you give 3 hot tips to anyone that's watching that has enjoyed your journey and it's perhaps got them thinking, you know, can I do this? Can I go from employee to entrepreneur, and how on earth would I get started?
3 tips. I think the number one, we just talked about this, is actually having a business coach. I didn't hire a business coach till this year. I didn't really know a whole lot about it until I joined Boss Babe. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, Boss Babe Society. Anyways, it's kind of a network for female entrepreneurs, and started just hearing a lot about business coaches and how people are just like kind of finding their way. And so that is probably the best investment I've ever made for my business and myself, because it's someone from an outside perspective. I had people that I was bouncing off ideas, my partner, my parents, like employees, but when they're so in it with you, it's very hard for them to look from up here. And so I think having a business coach, whether that's kind of a regular thing or just a session here and there, has made such a big difference for me, especially in the last 6 months and figuring out what I'm going to do after COVID happened and all that stuff. So that would be my number one, is getting a business coach.
Yeah.
Delegation is another one that I think is really, really important. And I wasn't very good at that at first. I was like trying to save every single dollar I could by doing everything myself. And then I realized like I'm doing stuff that I don't like doing that is taking away from stuff I could be doing. Like I'm sitting here making graphics that take me 47 minutes to do one picture, and my VA, it takes her 12 seconds. So it's like, I forget who, I was in some sort of course and they were like, do what you're good at, do what you like to do, and delegate the rest. And that has been a big, big game changer for me too, because it's given me the time to focus on what's going to grow my business versus some of the kind of daily tasks that I just don't need to be doing. And there's lots of different, like you can get an assistant, for example, at 10 hours a week. It doesn't have to be 40 hours a week. Or you could hire someone that is just going to come in 2 hours a week and do something for you. Just having someone that's good at stuff that you are not, because they're also going to be better at it. So you're not going to have to do it, and they're going to do it better than you. So yeah, that's a really big one, is delegation. The third one, I think, is just mapping out a plan. I think it's really easy to have an end goal and then feel overwhelmed because you're like, okay, I'm just doing lashes in my room right now, and I want to be an international lash speaker or whatever it is, depending on the industry, right? But it's like, you can say that all you want. If you don't sit here and map out, okay, well, what is the next thing I need to do to get me closer to the end goal? You're not going to start moving forward, and then you just get overwhelmed. It's not happening. Well, it's not happening because you're not moving towards it. So I think just kind of mapping out what you need to do to get to where you want to go is really, really important too. Yeah, no, I love them. So get some coaching, delegate the jobs out, and map it out. Great tips. And I think that's a great way to wrap up. I've put all your links in the comments there, guys. So if you want to get in touch with Sam or perhaps get some coaching from her,
you'll know where to find them. Sam, thanks so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed having a chat with you.
Yeah, that was lovely. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Take care, guys.